let us start with our prayer for study. Christ, my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work, for to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. I love the fact that some of you pray along with me, and if you don't, it's fine. You're not in trouble if you don't. And maybe are working on memorizing that. Yes.
I memorized it all. Yay!
It was very handy. You know, I said this before when we started doing. Christian, you with me? This is your job, right? Being a student is your job right now. And it says in the Bible that whatever you do, do it for God's glory. Whatever you're called to do. And so this is what you're called to do. So even if it seems like you're learning something that you don't want to learn, or you don't know why you have to learn it, the fact that your parents want you to is enough. Do you know what I mean? Because you're doing it really for them and for God. Okay. We are going to tragically polish off the Roman Empire today. But not really. Not really, because there's a catch to that whole fall of the Roman Empire thing. Let me look up our and I have a bunch of stuff to read and show you. But first of all, let's look at our map. Where is my map? Here we go. Now, let me remind you, and by the way, did anybody look at that link I sent out in last week's email with the growing and shrinking empire? It's fine if you didn't. It's very cool. It's very cool.
I love the music.
Yes, it's very martial, as they say. But so if you did see that, or we talked about this last week, that we read, I think it was under Hadrian. He gave part of Dacia away. They're starting to give, even by the 100s, they're starting to give bits away. They're starting to realize that I can't really manage all of this. And all these borders. This is thousands of miles of borders, right, to manage. And if there's people on almost all of them, maybe not here because this is desert. Although there were the Numidians, they had to deal with a little bit. They were over here. There were enemies almost on all sides. So now last week, remind me, we got past Diocletian, right? And then Constantine. We talked about Constantine last week, right? And that Constantine reunified the empire, basically. But then it ended up getting divided again because it was just too much to manage. But the real problem, and actually I think, this is the first question I asked you, from where and from whom did the main danger come in to the later Roman Empire? Emma?
Germanic tribes in the north and the northeast.
Yeah. These people. And there's a particular reason that they were such a big problem that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I brought in something that I forgot to bring last week, that I should have brought last week. You might remember that Constantine, and what did Constantine do that was notable? He changed a rule. What did he do? Yeah. Christianity is legal. That's what he did. And he, you might remember, had 3 sons, Constans, Constantius, and Constantine II, which is just, I have no comment on that. And what I should have brought last week is these coins.
More coins.
These are actually Roman coins. They're old.
Yeah, old stuff.
Yeah, and they have, actually not, I don't think so, but my son got them for me for Christmas. Hey guys, oh, we're so excited. Because it's the end of the school year. We're all just wigging out. And we're full of dates now, and we're all sugared up. but stay with me. Some of these coins, well, first of all, the reason, Christian, that these coins are not incredibly expensive is because they're very worn. They've been handled and they've been worn, so they're hard to read because they've been rubbed smooth. But on some of them, you can see this. Great. Is it Constantine, Constans, Constantius, or Constantine II? I have no idea. But it's probably from that time period, the 300s. So these coins are 1,700 years old. And on the backs of them, what we call tails, is a symbol on some of them, and it shows where it was minted. In other words, the place, the government facility where they made it. And one of them has the symbol on it from Carthage. There was a government at Carthage. So one of them was mentioned at Carthage. So here's what I'm going to do. I do not mind you holding them, because what's the fun of looking something in a bag? No, you got to touch it. You have to touch it. And okay, just a second. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I just want to make sure I get 9 back, right? And I'm going to just put a few of them here, and you guys can look at them. And I'm going to put a few of them here. You guys can look at them. And you can trade tables if you want to. Your eyes are better than mine, so you can probably see a little bit better the symbols on them. But I think it's, I think it's really very, very cool to touch something so old. And I wonder, who's the last person who used this coin before it fell on the ground and got buried, and then later archaeologists came and found it? Or what happened? You know, we lose coins all the time, don't we? You know, found pennies on the ground or nickels or whatever, and then if wind blows and it gets covered up with dirt, well, there it sits, you know, for who knows how long till somebody comes along and finds it. That's what happened to these. And I just wonder what it got used for last and who used it. And I'll never know. Yes?
Are there different sizes? Like, do you know, like...
I think there are different sizes. I do not know what these particular ones are. And also, because Roman history goes on for hundreds and hundreds of years, it's really, because something was true in the time of Augustus, doesn't mean it was true 300 later. You know, an ass, I know it sounds funny, it's AS, is the smallest coin. Sestertius is a level above that, and then a denarius, but I don't know. Anyway, are any of them getting over to Preston? Are they being? They're being hoarded. They're being hoarded at this end of the table. Yes, they're not totally round, are they? Some of them.
Not really round, no, but it seems like some parts of it are missing.
Oh, you know what they used to do, and I don't know if the Romans did this, but do you know they used to cut coins? Because the coins were actually worth money. You know, they had the worth of the metal in them. So sometimes people would cut one in half or cut little bits off and use it for payment, which is kind of weird. I know.
I guess basically that's the equivalent of paying $50.
Yes, yes. In fact, a bit is 12.5 cents, so it's half a quarter. And sometimes people say a 2-bit this or a 2-bit that, and it means kind of a low class or not worth very much. 2-bit means a quarter, because a bit is 12.5 cents. Anyway, all right. Are we satisfied with? All right. I think I don't know if we need to trade. Here's what I'll do. 6. Okay, 7, 8, 9. All right. Here's what I'll do, guys. I'm going to put them back in the bag so I don't lose them. But I'm going to put them out here, and after class, if you want to check them out again, I have no problem with that. But I'd like to move on because we don't have indefinite amount of time, an unending amount of time. But I will leave them here. Okay, so I told you that I would tell you why the Germans were such a problem, and it was this. Up here and even farther off the map, were a bunch of tribes of people. They were called Goths or Vandals or Huns. We'll talk about the Huns in a minute. And for whatever reason, groups of them started moving this direction. Sometimes they moved this direction because there was another group behind them chasing them. Sometimes they moved because they were following animals, and animals were migrating, or, maybe there was a drought. Anyway, as they move this direction, they press on the people here, who press on the people here, who press on the people here, and finally we get to the people who are on the border of the empire. And it's like, what's the deal? These new people are moving into the neighborhood. They're not very nice, and I need to get away from them. So they started asking for permission to come into the empire. They started begging the empire for help. And as the Goths moved over, and by the way, the Germans had been coming over for some time now. I think I told you that sometimes the Germans they let them join the army, and they got training, and then they went back home and helped them rebel. But the Goths came in, and the Goths even asked for permission. They're just one of these tribes to settle here, north of Greece. And the empire let them in, but the people living in Constantinople weren't really pleased with these Goths being their next door neighbors. So they said to the Goths, hey, dudes, you should go to Italy. I hear Italy is awesome this time of year. And they sent them basically to attack Italy, to get rid of them. Nobody wanted them near them, but they wanted to let them in because they knew they were being pushed by other people. Yes, Britt?
Have you ever heard of the book The White Stag?
I have not.
It's by Kate Shirley, I think.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote Good Master. I think it's about this time period.
Oh, really?
Sometime.
Well, maybe some of you would like to look into that book if you're interested. So the Goths did go to Italy, and I asked you the next question: what event in 410 AD shook the world? What happened in 410? It's a pretty big deal. Rome fell. Well, not totally. What, you want to elaborate on it, Emma?
The leader of the Goths entered Rome with a bunch of their followers and let them burn and pillage the city.
Alaric the Goth, with his peeps, came into Rome. His, not marshmallow birds, but his friends. Yes, apparently peeps is not slang current anymore. He came into Rome in 410, and they just took whatever they wanted. They just took whatever they wanted, and no one could stop them. Now, the last time this had happened was in 386 BC, when the Gauls, do you remember the geese squawked and woke up the guards? Remember this story? It's hard to forget.
Yeah.
If you hear about the geese squawking and saving everybody, it's hard to forget. Guys, it's been 700 years since an enemy marched into Rome. They made it through Hannibal. They made it through all of this, and no enemy had just come in Rome and pillaged. And the Goths did. Alaric just waltzed in. They say that he didn't pillage any churches. He had a lot of respect for churches. He wasn't a barbarian. The Romans thought he was a barbarian, right? But I mean, he wasn't so far off the grid of uncivilized that he didn't recognize that these were holy places and he shouldn't attack them. So apparently, many, many people fled to churches to be safe from the Goths, even people who weren't Christians. Suddenly everybody was a Christian in 410 AD. We'll just put it that way. It's like, save me, I want in the church too, save me from the Goths. And people flocked to the churches. Everybody, and guys, I can't say this with enough emphasis or solemnity, they literally thought the world was ending. I don't mean that metaphorically. They thought Jesus was about to come back. The world as we know it is over. Because how could Rome be attacked. So Saint Jerome, do any of you know what Saint Jerome is famous for?
Of reading the Bible?
Writing
Translating the Bible.
into what language?
Latin.
Latin, writing the Vulgate. Here's what Saint Jerome said. Saint Jerome, who was living far off near Bethlehem, he could hardly believe what he heard. In a letter written shortly afterwards, he said, "The city which had taken all the world was itself taken. The Roman world is falling." They honestly thought it was the end of all things, and I'm not being dramatic. Because it had been, well, let's do this math. 753 BC, founding of Rome, 410 AD. Let's add them together because we have years before, years after, so we have to add them. We have 3, 6, 11, 1,163 years since the founding of Rome, since the traditional founding of Rome. That's a really, really, really long time. Now, were they an empire all the time? No, you know that, right? It took a long time taking over their neighbors and taking over Italy and fighting Carthage. But Rome had been a big player on the world scene for 1,100 years. And suddenly, Goths were just marching through Rome, like stripping gold and bronze off the roofs of public buildings and taking it.
What?
Just walking into houses, taking whatever they want.
Wait.
Who said wait? Oh, okay. Do you have a question?
Don't they have like soldiers south there or something?
That's a really good question, Julia. What has happened to their soldiers? The Roman army is now so weak. And there's so few of them in Rome because remember, we got to send them all over. And we don't have the manpower. There's been, well, we talked about this before, right? In early Rome, when you send everybody off to war, who does the farming? Who grows the food? You start running short on food. It takes a lot of manpower to watch all these borders. And things are not going well. So, yes, can you imagine? Even Hannibal didn't make it into Rome, and he was right there with his elephants and everything. And the Goths just waltzed in because there wasn't anyone to fight them off. It's horrifying. So the Goths moved in. The Vandals came behind the Goths. They basically bypassed Italy, went to Spain, and then hit North Africa. What is a Vandal? That was the question I asked you. I asked you to look it up if you don't know what a Vandal is. Today. I mean, not these Vandals, but when we say somebody's a Vandal today, what's a Vandal do?
Oh. Somebody messed up property?
Yeah, you mess up property. You break stuff, you ruin stuff. The people who spray paint pictures on things that are not their own are vandals. People who carve their names into things that are not their own are vandals, technically. And so from the fact that we call people who destroy property vandals, you might have an idea of what vandals did. The vandals that I'm talking about now. They ran around destroying things. They don't take it like the Goths and use it. They just don't want anybody to have it, and they just break it and ruin it. They marched through Spain and went to North Africa, and in North Africa was a town, Hippo Regius. It's kind of funny. Hippo is really funny. But hippo means horse, you know, if that helps. Hippos. Hippos is the... hippopotamus is Greek for water horse. Hippos means horse, and potamos is river in Greek. So hippopotamus is a river horse. So hippos is horse. So it's named for horses, which makes it sound a little more regal. But anyway, in this town was a bishop that a lot of you probably know, St. Augustine or Augustine, depending on how you prefer to pronounce his name. And while he was bishop, but he was old and he was dying, the Vandals surrounded his town. he probably from his bed could hear the armies outside the city. They didn't kill him. He died of old age of natural causes, and he didn't actually see the Vandals get in, but they were there. And they were taking city after city. By the way, St. Augustine is important in another respect. And it is this. Rome has been attacked by the Goths. Things are going very poorly in the empire. And some people said, what is happening to us? What's the deal? Some people said, I think I know. You know what? It's those Christians. I think it's those Christians. I think the problem is things started going downhill when we stopped worshiping Jupiter and Juno and Apollo and Ares and all of those gods. I think we need to go back and worship them again because they have turned their backs on us and they're not saving us because we don't worship them anymore. People were seriously considering this. And Augustine, St. Augustine, obviously did not agree with this. He did not think this was true. And he wrote a very, very long book. It's called The City of God. It's like 800 pages or more. It's a really long book of theology. And it's about the fact that the kingdom of God is not of this world, that kingdoms of this world rise and fall, like Rome. But God has another kingdom. And that you can't judge God's favor by the fact of an earthly kingdom rising or falling. Basically, there's a lot more to it than that. But he tried to convince people, look, it's not Christianity. It's God's timing. Rome is done. Empires rise and fall. That's the way history works. But people were a little shook up about this. Okay, now, let's talk about those Huns. Is there anybody here who's never heard of Attila the Hun? It's totally fine if you've never heard of Attila the Hun, but he did.
He did?
Oh, chalk another one up for horrible histories. Yes, if that's where you learned that, I don't know. No, somewhere else? That sounds like something that would be on horrible histories, though, doesn't it? I love those comedians. Okay, so the Huns have a reputation for not being very nice. Would we all agree?
Yes.
Okay, Attila the Hun, we don't think of somebody being very nice. And he started heading towards Europe. And this is why the Goths and the Vandals and everybody are running away, because everybody's running away from Attila the Hun. Now, there's something interesting about history, and it is this. If a friend of someone or a fan of someone describes them, it's very different than if an enemy describes them, right? But what if the only description you had was from an enemy? Would you think that person was really, really horrible? Yeah. What if the only description was from their best friend? Would you think they were really awesome?
Yeah.
Yeah. You might not have the true story. So what I want to read to you, I find this highly amusing, is two descriptions of Attila the Hun and the Huns. One of them, well, actually here, let me read. One of them was written, the first one was written by a Roman historian who never met the Huns. The other was written by a man named Priscus, who was an ambassador from the Eastern Roman Empire to the court of Attila the Hun. So from Constantinople, he was sent, the Eastern Empire. So the first guy is a Roman historian who never met the Huns. The second guy was the guy who was actually sent as an ambassador to Attila the Hun's, residence. So already, which one do you suspect is going to be maybe a little more accurate?
The guy who actually met him.
The guy who actually met him. So, but it's entertaining. So, okay, this is the description of the Huns from the guy who never met one. And just imagine this was the only one we had. This is the only description we had. Just imagine. Okay, the people of the Huns are quite abnormally savage. From the moment of their birth, they make deep gashes in their children's cheeks, so that when in due course hair appears, its growth is checked by the wrinkled scars. They have squat bodies, strong limbs, and thick necks, and are so prodigiously ugly and bent that they might be two-legged animals, or the figures crudely carved from stumps, which are seen on the parapets of bridges. They're like gargoyles. Still their shape, however disagreeable, is human. Well, that's nice of them. But their way of life is so rough that they have no use for fire or seasoned food, but live on the roots of wild plants and the half-raw flesh of any sort of animal. Okay, this is my second favorite part. Which the meat, half-raw meat, which they warm a little by placing it between their thighs and the backs of their horses.
Oh no.
That was, they sit on it to warm it up and then they eat it.
What if they're a bit gassy that day?
Oh.
I didn't say it.
Okay, they have no buildings to shelter them, but avoid anything of the kind. Not so much as a hut thatched with reeds is to be found among them. Okay, this is now my favorite part. They wear garments of linen or of the skins of field mice stitched together. How many mice does it take to make pants?
200.
Probably like 1,000 maybe.
Field
I
mice.
don't think that's pretty.
If
I don't
you
think
see,
that's accurate.
The poor mice.
how big is a skinned mouse? I mean, okay, that's what he says. They wear the skins of mice stitched together, and there is no difference between their clothing whether they are at home or abroad. Oh, this is nice. Once they have put their necks in some dingy shirt, they never take it off or change it till it rots and falls to pieces from incessant wear.
Oh.
Nice. They have round caps of fur on their heads and protect their hairy legs with goat skins. Their shapeless shoes make it hard to walk easily. In consequence, they are ill-fitted to fight on foot, but remain glued to their horses, hardy but ugly beasts. Even their horses are ugly, on which they sometimes sit like women to perform their everyday business. Okay, this is the Huns, as described by somebody who never met a Hun. Now, next up is a visit to Attila's house. When the hour arrived, we went to Attila's palace, along with the embassy from the Western Romans, and stood on the threshold of the hall in the presence of Attila. The cupbearers gave us a cup, according to the national custom, that we might pray before we sat down. Having tasted the cup, we proceeded to take our seats, all the chairs being ranged along the wall of the room on either side. Attila sat in the middle on a couch. A second couch was set behind him, and from it steps led to his bed, which was covered with linen sheets and coverlets. The cupbearers retired, and tables, large enough for 3 or 4 or even more to sit at, were placed next to the table of Attila, so that each could take food on the dishes without leaving his seat. The attendant of Attila first entered with a dish full of meat, and behind him came other attendants with bread and other dishes, which they laid on the tables. A luxurious meal served on silver plate had been made ready for us and the other guests, but Attila ate nothing but meat on a wooden platter. In everything else, too, he showed himself temperate. His cup was of wood, while to his guests were given goblets of gold and silver. His dress, too, was quite simple, affecting only to be clean. Does this sound like the same group of people?
No.
In the first one, they don't even have houses. And in this one, it's like, oh, let's bring in the sofa and bring in tables loaded with bread and other delicacies and toast you with a golden goblet. And wow. Yeah. So, guys, it makes a big difference who talks about someone, right? And what they know and what they've heard. But if you only had one side, you would really have a misrepresentation of what they were like. Now, apparently the first guy's attitude kind of won out, because most people, Attila the Hun, total barbarian, savage, but not according to this. Well, he headed to Italy, and I believe this is the next question I guess I asked you. Who met Attila the Hun in a showdown after which Attila left Rome?
Leo the First.
Pope Leo the First. You might ask yourself, as Julia asked just a minute ago, where is the army? Where is somebody else to go deal with this? And why is the Bishop of Rome having to go out and deal with invasion? Well, because there's nobody else to do it. Basically, the power has shifted over to Constantinople, right? The emperor's over there. They're leaving Rome in the dust. There's nobody strong enough or in charge to go out and deal with it except the Pope. So the Pope puts on all his papal regalia and he goes out, and here's what happened. He meets Attila outside the city. They talk to each other a little bit, and Attila leaves. And he doesn't come back. And nobody knows what happened. See, people who are cynical, which means they kind of put a bad spin on everything, say, oh, he paid him off. Leo took a bunch of money, took a bunch of gold, and just gave it to Attila and said, leave, and I'll give you this. This is possible. However, when you give somebody money to do something, what do they do later sometimes? They come back and they want more money. This is why never ever pay off blackmailers. This is your Mrs. Ferguson's lesson for the day. First of all, don't ever do anything bad that someone can blackmail you for. You know, do you know what I mean by blackmail? Mm-hmm. I know something bad about you. Give me money and I won't tell. That's blackmail. I saw you eat those cookies. Give me $100 and I won't tell your mom. But then later the next week they're like, oh, I still remember you ate those cookies. I think I want another $100, and it never ends, right? Paying people off to do things doesn't usually end well. Other people say, you know what? Leo just looked so imposing. He was so grand in his vestments that it just bowled Attila over, and he left. Some people think God had something to do with it. I'm sure God had something to do with it, to protect Rome at that point. Be that as it may, Rome was saved from being pillaged again by the Pope, who went out and had a little discussion with Attila the Hun.
Pope Leo the First?
I think so. I think so. Now, Anne said, was talking about Attila's demise. And it was this. Attila went off and he got married to some young girl, and they had a big party, and he drank a lot. And then that night, he was kind of passed out drunk, and he had a nosebleed, and it choked him to death. Because it didn't wake him up, and like the blood was flowing, and choked him, and he couldn't breathe. I know. Well, if you're laying on your back, and it doesn't come out, it goes down your throat, and you breathe it in, because you're passed out drunk, and you don't know what's going on. This is reason number 821, not to drink so much that you pass out. Don't ever do that. There are many, many reasons not to do that, but this is another one, apparently.
Yeah, I guess.
So Attila was no longer a threat. The Huns kind of went back from whence they came and really did not trouble the empire anymore.
Well, that's why we don't party.
What?
That's why we don't party too much.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed,
Just don't
indeed.
drink.
Or just don't drink. Now,
Yeah, you can drink. Don't drink.
okay, all right. None of you, though, can because you're not 21. Okay. Well, I know, but it's between you and your parents, but I am not putting any seal of approval on that. Okay, so what happened? 410, the Goths pillage, but we don't call that the end of Rome. We don't call that the fall of Rome. We call it 476. 476 AD is the traditional fall of Rome. And I asked you guys, who was the last Roman emperor? Who was the last one? What was his name?
I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Okay, what?
Odosier? I don't
Oh, no.
no
He's a German guy. He's not.
Oh, no?
The last
The
guy
Roman
who...
emperor.
Roman emperor. Let me see if I can find where she says it. That's okay. No, Emma, it's fine. Okay, but okay, here we go. In 476 AD, the end came. Odoacer, the chief general of the army, himself a German, demanded of the young emperor, Romulus Augustulus, that land in Italy should be given to the Germans who were serving in the army. The emperor refused. and quietly he was set aside. It does not mean he was murdered, interestingly. His name, first of all, was Romulus Augustulus. He was just a kid. He was not very old. I don't know how old he was, but he wasn't an adult. What is significant about Romulus? What Romulus have we met before? Yeah. Oh. Yeah. And Amelia, do you know what's significant? Augustulus? Who does that remind us of? Augustus. So the founder of Rome and first king. Augustus is the first emperor. Ulus means a little one. Like anytime they take a noun in Latin and turn it into ulus, it means a little version. He's a little Augustus. He's Romulus Augustulus. Yeah, they actually, Odoacer took him and just kind of locked him up in a castle and said, dude, you're under house arrest basically for the rest of your life. But he didn't kill him, and I think that's saying something. I'm kind of impressed by that. A little bit. I mean, it seems like the least you can expect is not to go murdering people, but in this case, I think it's pretty impressive. And so Odoacer, now he becomes king. Notice what he calls himself. He's king of Italy.
Bruh.
Not emperor of the Rome, king of Italy. And from here on out, for a good while, the guy in charge in Italy is German. Odoacer gets in trouble and he gets assassinated and another guy takes over, and this goes on for a while. Italy is being run by Germans now. However, I told you that this date isn't really 100% accurate, and here's why. And I mentioned this last week, I think. It's only this half that is falling apart. This half is going to stay, they're going to lose bits of it. But there's going to be a Roman emperor in Constantinople for another 1,000 years. For another 1,000 years, till 1453. Constantinople fell in 1453. And guys, Columbus sailed in 1492. 40 years before the discovery of America, there was a Roman emperor in Constantinople.
Whoa.
40 years before.
What?
I know. When you start running the numbers and you look at the dates, holy cow!
That actually blew my mind.
It blows my mind a little too, Christian. Now, it shrank and shrank and shrank because they had lots of enemies around them. And some of those enemies, some of you did my medieval year last year, so you know about that. Some of you are going to do it next year, and we'll kind of pick up there, and we'll look at that. But it shrank and shrank and shrank until they were fighting off at their last gasp. But it didn't fall till 1453. So there are historians who don't like this the fall of Rome, 476 AD. Like, you know what? There still is a Rome in the east, technically New Rome, Constantinople, and there's still a Roman emperor. There are also people who notice that, you know what? You don't go to sleep on December 31st, 475, and wake up on January 1st, 476, and find out that the world is completely changed. Things happen slowly. So these German guys, they had a bunch of Roman advisors. They had a senate. There were Roman noblemen still helping with government. People were still trading and sending things back and forth, and messengers were going. It wasn't immediate, but this is a convenient date. It's nice to peg dates on places because it's never going to be quite the same again after that. All right, that is the Roman Empire in a semester. We found it from its beginnings to its demise, maybe. I have a poem called The Fall of Rome, which seems very appropriate for today. And then I want to show you these lamps. And then as per request, I did bring English. But before we move on, I want to read the poem, and I want to see if there are any questions. Okay. Barbarians, Rome called the tribes who lived beyond its borders. Rome conquered them, destroyed their towns, then Rome gave all the orders. But years went by and Rome grew weak. Barbarians grew stronger. At last there came the bitter time Rome ruled the world no longer. Barbarians poured into Rome. They looted, burned, and killed. The way of life that once was Rome was now forever stilled. Just as a note, by the time of Saint Benedict, he was in Rome as a young man. So this is like in the 400s. Rome was just a mess. It was a disaster. He went to school there and he said it's just corrupt. It was already corrupted. But by the 600s, 700s, 800s, maybe by the year 1000, people went to Rome and they said there were sheep grazing in the Forum. That's how far Rome had fallen. There were just animals grazing in the grass growing up between the stones in the Forum.
That's weird.
I know. It was almost abandoned. Okay, does somebody have a question or comment? Do I see something? Okay. And does anybody have a comment or a question? I actually have a couple of pictures here to show you too before we move on. This is the bigger version of Caracalla who blotted his brother's face out that I told you that I was going to bring in. This is the only painted portrait of an emperor, Septimius Severus. All the rest of them are statues. This is the only painting that we have. And it was in Egypt. This painting was in Egypt. But after 200, 300, we start seeing a lot of other kinds of artwork. And here I brought in two representations. What do you think? Who is this? What is his job? Who is this guy? He's a shepherd, and he's the good shepherd. We get Christian art. This one is painted on one of the catacombs in Rome, where they buried people under the ground. And so they talk about Christians hiding in the catacombs. That wasn't really quite accurate, but they did have church services down there sometimes, because they liked to go to the tomb on the feast day of a particular person on their Memorial Day. So they went and had communion there with lamps and things. And so this is one of the paintings in there. This is actually in the Vatican Museum today. It's a little over 3 feet high. And but the church didn't like statues as much because it made them think of pagan statues. They like painting because the Romans didn't do so much painting. I just said that's the only painted image of an emperor, but they like statues. So the Christians were like, oh, let's not do statues because there's too many pagan statues. But they did a few, and this is one. It says from 300 to 350 AD. So we get lots of good shepherds, and we get a new kind of art. All right, that is all I got. I will now talk to you about these lamps. I put them in order. Actually, okay, this is kind of dangerous, but I wonder if you could all try not to knock that over. Just try. And can you come over here? Can you all get to where you can see these? Because that would be awesome. Because it's kind of a look at them together sort of thing. Here, let me just turn it.
That one. Well, I like
Okay,
the square one.
you can come in front of it. I mean, it's okay. You can go over there, Emma. There you go. Okay, so here's what I've done. This is a collection supposed to show you the change of lamps over time. So this is the earliest one.
I like that one.
And this is the last one. And so and this is a little booklet that came with them, and it tells you what time period they're each from. And I'm going to go through and tell you. But what happened? So this is the first lamp. And basically, it's a square of clay, and they just fold it in 3 sides. And you could burn off any of the corners, right? What happened between this one and this one? What did the makers of lamps decided they liked better?
They like
Bigger
circles. Bigger.
Okay, bigger. What else is different?
There's only one.
It's only got one spout. Like we don't dig that anymore. We want to just one. And what happened from here to here?
got flat.
Okay, now we flatten it up a little bit. What happened from here to here?
It's small.
It's smaller, but what happened to the shape too?
Squeeze.
Yeah, it's squeezed. Look, there's not a big dish anymore. What happened to this one?
Got a circle.
It got pinched together, right? Eventually, like we don't like that. We're just
It
going to
got
make
pinched
it.
and squished.
Yes, and then this is not a big difference, is it?
No.
Basically the same. This is very much the same. There's not as much change here. And then what has already happened in the world by the time this one was made?
Here we are. Oh, Christian.
It's Christian era. Okay, so here's the actual time period. This is how far. I'll go through my little booklet because I have memorized. Okay, this one, 2000 BC,
Oh.
time of Abraham. Abraham.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's easier to. Okay, this one, like judges, the judges in Israel, or Saul, David. This one, Persians. The Persians are attacking Greece, right? And they're at Marathon. This one, 1st century BC, Pompey. Pompey is attacking and making Judea a Roman province. This one, Herod, time of Jesus. Tiberius is emperor. Nero is emperor.
No, I don't hero.
Okay, the good emperors.
Yeah.
The good emperors.
Awesome. Good luck.
This one, not so good emperors. Caracalla and guys who scratch out their brothers' faces.
Oh.
Not so good. And then finally, Constantine.
Yeah.
The empire is falling. That's several hundred years, okay? And it's just really interesting to me that styles just change, right? It's not that this works better than that one. It's that I like the way this looks better. And, we know fashions change and styles change. They change really fast now sometimes, but they change so slowly. So imagine you're an archaeologist, and you're digging and you find a lamp like this. You roughly know what time you're talking about, right? Whereas you find one like this and you know it's way older. You might just find pieces of it, but I might be able to. Yeah, I was dusting it once and it fell on the ground.
At least it didn't shatter into a million
Yes.
pieces.
What are you going to say, Bryn?
Are those replicas?
These are replicas. These are all, I ordered these. The Biblical Archaeology Society had this collection, and I had Christmas money or birthday money years ago, like 35 years ago. And I just decided this is what I wanted to spend it on, so I did. Anyway, that is the deal, and it's very helpful for archaeologists that fashions change, because then they can tell. It's like painting on vases. I like to paint vases this way, and then 200 years later, it's like, we don't like that way anymore. We paint them a different way, and then they know. Okay, you may carefully go back to your seats.
People with water bottles. People like Stanley's 1 week, and then a week later, they're like, no, I like a wall is better.
Oh, yes. All right, awesome. Okay, we have 35 minutes for English,
Yes.
Yeah.
which I will go ahead and record because for the Beatis, if they would like to watch. But before we move on, does anybody have, that's pretty much it. But does anybody have a question or a comment about Greece and Rome? Yes, Anne.
Are you going to light the lamps?
I don't light these. I don't put oil in these because when you do it, the oil soaks into the clay and it's very messy. So the one that I do light, I brought in earlier this year, but unfortunately the wick was too short and I was out of oil. I'm sorry about that. It didn't really light well.
Because you were telling the story about the foolish women that forgot their
Yes, and then I forgot the oil too. I was one of the foolish women. But I keep it on a plate at home because it makes an oil mess. It soaks in. Yes.
Use it.
I do use it. I have a little prayer corner with candles that I light, and I actually light that every morning. And I keep it filled with oil.
That's awesome.
Because I like it. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Not only about this class, but what's that?
Oh, Luke made this. Luke made this for me. I told him they're climbing the hill of Latin. They're learning. He's helping pull him up, and he's climbing. No, I think I'm this person, but Christian thinks I'm this person. I feel like I'm this person, and I have teachers that are helping me.
It was John and Jonas from For the Temple.
Oh, or it could be John and Jonas for the temple. And he's down in the, when they were hiding.
Yeah.
It could be both.
Yeah.
I like all of the above. All right. Oh,
That's really good.
okay. Yes, thank you. I think it's adorable. Okay, so I feel a little guilty that I'm just going to waste half hour, but
No, don't be.
okay, but here's the thing. You're going to have to be patient because first of all, I don't always remember the ones that I read to you already. And I'm sure that if I read them again. Okay, these are history. These are history things that kids said. The great, I don't know if you'll get all of them, okay? But if you don't get it, just say, I don't get it, and I'll explain it, all right? But it's kind of not a very good joke if I have to explain it. The Great Wall of China was built to keep out the mongrels. They mean the Mongols, but mongrels are dogs. Great Wall of China was keep out the mongrels. These are things that kids wrote on tests, and they didn't really know how to spell or exactly. You will like this one, I think. Pompeii was destroyed by an overflow of saliva from the Vatican.
They did not study.
They mean lava. It wasn't lava, but there was no vat. Okay. Okay. To get the next one, I will. This one's a little. I don't know. A brazier is like a pot for fire, right? It's got feet. Okay, that looks like a robot. And then you put coals in it, right? And that is supposed to be a flame. Okay.
It's a torch.
Okay, a brazier, all right? But this is what the kid wrote. Roman women built fires in their braziers. It's not what they meant. Okay. Julius Caesar was renowned for his great strength. He threw a bridge across the Rhine, which means he put a bridge across the Rhine, but we say he threw a bridge across the Rhine. His dying words were, "And you too, you brute." Okay, Rome. I think they meant barbarians, but here's what they wrote: Rome was invaded by the ball bearings. Okay, this is all the ancient one. This is unfortunate. Maybe, I don't know if you'll get it or not. In the middle of the 18th century, all the morons moved to Utah. Do you know what they meant? What group of people moved to Utah? Mormons. The Mormons. The morons moved to Utah. The process of putting a president on trial is known as impalement. It's impeachment. Impalement means stick you on a sharp stick. That's impaling. All right. The two kinds of books printed are friction and non-friction.
James says some weird stuff.
Romeo and Juliet, I don't know if you're familiar with Romeo and Juliet, right? Tell each other how much they are in love in the baloney scene. They meant the balcony scene. The baloney scene. In Drums Along the Mohawk, which is apparently a book, while fleeing an Indian attack, the heroine, hurriedly stuffed her enormous hams into a seat in the wagon.
What?
Enormous hams.
Heroin?
Heroine is a lady hero.
Oh,
That wasn't the joke, Christian. The joke was that she stuffed her enormous hams into a seat in the wagon. I don't even know what that means.
Hands? Hands? Maybe hands.
Aaron Copland is one of our most famous contemporary composers. It is unusual to be contemporary. Most composers do not live until they are dead.
What?
They mean most famous composers are dead. Like Mozart and Bach and Beethoven and everything. But this one's okay.
Good analogy, man.
A molecule is so small that it can't be seen by the naked observer. They mean the naked eye. Okay, I feel like I read these. Okay. Shh. Okay, guys, calm down. You're making me feel guiltier for. All right, just a second. Oh yeah, I did read this before, but I will read it again. In biology today, we digested a frog.
I think you told us that one.
Yes.
It's funny, though.
Yeah, it's still funny.
Yes. Okay, these are. Okay, these are some of the church ones.
Okay, oh yeah, the church ones. Yeah.
On
The
the
church ones. God is good. Father Mike is better.
But if you don't stop talking, you can't hear the joke. Okay. On the gates of the Winnipeg Anglican Cathedral, which is set in a cemetery, appear two notices. These are both on the gates of the Anglican Church. One says, "The Anglican Church welcomes you." And the other says, "The premises are protected by guard dogs." Do you see that it's funny? It doesn't sound like they're welcoming people if they have guard dogs.
Okay.
Tonight's sermon, what is hell? Come early and listen to our choir practice. Yes, okay. Crowds rushing to see Pope trample 6 to death. Unfortunately, it's not. They accidentally trampled 6 people to death when rushing to see the Pope, but it sounds like they came to see the Pope trample 6 people to death.
I know that.
Okay, hang on. Okay, court. I don't remember how many of these I read. Okay, questions and answers in court. Question. What happened then? Answer. He told me, he says, "I have to kill you because you can identify me." Question. Did he kill you?
He's talking to.
Question. Is that a person you ever had any further dealings with after that? Answer. He's dead. Question. But did you have any further dealings with him after that?
No, he's dead.
Question. Were you leaning up against the shut door or open door? Answer. A shut door. How can you lean against an open door? There's a hole there. You'd fall through the hole. Which is true. Okay. Question. When was the first time you dropped out of class because of fatigue or memory problems? Answer. I don't recall. I can't remember. Question. When was the next occasion that you had difficulty with your wife? Answer. April 27th, I believe it was, when she backed over me with the automobile.
Oh.
He's 5.
That must be a mad wife.
You're crazy. Or drunk.
You told her, question, you told her about that before the surgery? Answer. I said we could probably save the toes, but I didn't know about the foot.
Oh, okay.
What good would it do to save her toes if you can't save the foot? Question, you work 7 days a week? Answer, a lot of times I worked more than that.
You're mysterious.
Question,
No, it doesn't make sense. It makes me mad. It makes me.
where was the security officer in relation to you when you were struck by a car? Answer, to my left. Question, how far to your left? Answer, I don't really remember. I was getting run over at the time. Which is a good point.
It's a good point.
Okay, medical reports. Okay, this is the medical, the doctor fills out the medical report.
Okay.
Died suddenly, nothing serious. They mean there was no serious underlying ailment. The patient died suddenly, but died suddenly, nothing serious. It's dead.
Yeah.
Cause of death unknown. Had never been fatally ill before. Do you know what it means to be fatally ill? You die. He'd never been fatally ill before.
This doctor doesn't know what he's doing.
Cause of death. Don't know. Died without the aid of a physician. Which makes it sound a little bit like the doctors help people die. Died without the aid of a physician. The patient has been depressed ever since she began seeing me in 1983. It sounds like the patient is depressed because of the doctor. Ever since she's been seeing me, she's been depressed. The patient is a 3-year-old who has been vomiting off and on for 12 years. I don't understand that at all.
Maybe it was just like a 12-year-old who's been vomiting for 3 years.
Discharge status. They're discharging him from the hospital. Alive, but without permission. It means they were discharged without permission. Not that they're alive without permission, but
Alive with permission.
um,
I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to listen to you.
okay, see if you can catch the problem with this one. He had a left toe amputation 1 month ago. He also had a left above knee amputation last year.
That
What?
That doesn't make sense.
No.
Indeed.
So his fake toe got cut off.
Indeed.
Right?
How do you think he'll be cut off? I don't know.
Slice it up.
Okay.
Why would you need to do
Signs. This is a sign.
Yes.
Okay, before I read it, so no, and then it's a list of things you can't do, right? No, this in the store. But here's what it says. No dogs eating bicycles. No dogs, no eating, no bicycles, but no dogs eating bicycles is what the sign ends up saying. In each room in a London hotel, this sign appears. If you wish for breakfast, lift the phone and ask for room service. That will be enough to bring your food up. Makes it sound like...
Okay. Weird.
That's awkward.
On a Jacksonville, Florida bookstore, rare, out of print, and non-existent books.
Like banned books, you mean?
No, non-existent.
No, I'm just trying to find
Yes,
some logic in this.
I am afraid you might have to work really hard to find logic in that, Emma.
Banned books.
Um,
They're technically non-existent.
Um,
Technically not in
All right.
I don't know.
Okay. Police reports. Police reports. Police reports and newspapers. Okay. An antique mirror was stolen from the home of Mr. and Mrs. Buddy Shavers of Worcester Thursday evening. Police are looking into it. Okay, to get this one, you're going to have to know that clairvoyance means being psychic, knowing things. That's what clairvoyance means. You know, psychic means you know what's going to happen, or you can read people's minds and stuff. Okay, that's clairvoyance. Okay, here it is. This evening's meeting of the Clairvoyance Society has been canceled due to unforeseen circumstances.
Oh.
See, if they're clairvoyant, they should have seen. Because they're psychic, they can see what's going to happen in the future.
Okay, that's just.
Okay. Brian Porter, embezzler. Do you know what an embezzler is? Boy, the
Jewels and necklaces and stuff.
yeah. Well, but you steal money. It could be anything. It could be anything. But you steal it, money stuff that's been entrusted to you. So if Judas was an embezzler. Judas, betrayed Jesus. It said he used to take money out of the purse. Okay, that's embezzler. So you take money from your company, right? Secretly? Okay. Brian Porter, embezzler, endorsed checks for $90,299.77 last year. For 9 months, he played the daily double, sipped dry martinis, dallied with expensive prostitutes, flew first class to city, and spent the rest foolishly. It makes it sound like that was all a good way to spend it, and the rest he spent foolishly. Okay. Anyway, just a second.
You can't see my wall.
All right. Okay.
The Maltese can't be seen with a negative zone.
Okay. These are corrections. Sometimes when the newspaper prints something that's wrong, then they print a correction. Yes. In one edition of today's food section, an inaccurate number of jalapeno peppers was given for Jeanette Crowley's Southwestern chicken salad recipe. The recipe should call for 2, not 21 jalapeno peppers.
That's terrible.
Apology. I originally wrote, Woodrow Wilson's wife grazed sheep on the front lawn of the White House. I'm sorry. In other words, they had sheep on the White House lawn. That's fine. I'm sorry, typesetting inadvertently left out the word sheep. So what got printed was Woodrow Wilson's wife grazed on the front lawn of the house. Okay, clarification. The phrase, the phrase dummy head, which was accidentally printed beneath a photograph in Thursday's Clarion Dispatch, was intended as a typographical notation for use in the production process. In other words, it was dummy head. It's what they mean. There's a placeholder there. Like we will replace it. We will replace it with the real one later. It's just the mock-ups, and it's called a dummy head. But they actually printed somebody's picture, and underneath the caption said dummy head. It was not intended to describe in any way the subject of the photograph. Dummy head. Sorry. Okay. Oh my goodness.
You can't wait to see my picture in the newspaper.
Dummy.
Just say it, dummy. You almost $5 million.
These are signs in foreign countries that are poorly put into English.
Yeah, never use Google Translate.
I'm trying to pick one. Okay. Do not use the diving board when the swimming pool is empty.
Why would you use
That's very smart.
That's weird.
It's fair.
Smart.
Smart, but
To call the room service, please open the door and call room service. Guests are prohibited from walking around the lobby in large groups in the nude.
Oh!
well, yeah.
Hey, what?
But only in large groups?
Oh!
Yes, in the nude means naked. A sports jacket must be worn to dinner, but not trousers. And they also said tea in a bag, just like mother.
Okay.
This is a Chinese road sign.
Okay.
Go soothingly on the greasy mud, for therein lurks the skid demon.
Wait, what?
What the?
Wait.
The what?
It could be the skibidi.
Oh!
Okay. Plastic, this is on a toy. Plastic bugs. Scare your friends. Put them in a drink. They float. Sounds like you put your friends in the drink and they float. Okay, ultimately it is to Italy that we must turn for truly inspired gibberish. Consider these instructions on a packet of Italian convenience food. So like a TV dinner sort of food, okay? This is what it says. Besmear a baking pan, previously buttered with good tomato sauce, and after dispose the cannelloni, lightly distanced between them in a only couch.
What? What?
That's the instructions for cooking the food.
I'm so confused.
Okay, fire regulations in a hotel in Italy. In burning case, the foredisposed ring bells for the adverting have a very strong sound and shall be actioned with breaks of 1 or 2 seconds between one ring and the other. Okay. If the burning is in your room or around and you think that has not been noted, advise immediately the hotel staff. If the burning has come in a part of your gangway, get wet abundantly a sheet and wrap it around yourself starting from your head, then pass through quickly the danger area till you join the stairs. I mean, I do understand what they want you to do, but if the flames or the intensely smoke prevent you to go away from your room and join the stairs, lean out from the balcony or the window and wait for the helps.
The hell?
The helps.
I don't get that.
Wait for the fire department. Or just
That helps.
wait for the
That helps the work. That helps.
Okay. I've got a second book here. I think we will move on to the other book.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the original one. I think I read more of these to you, but I don't.
Hear them all over again.
Yes.
Um,
All of them.
Dab.
oh, I didn't mark. Oh, shoot. I didn't mark these with red. Oh, I.
Like home.
Like
That film when he says this.
Okay, just a second. See if I can find. Okay. Oh, wait. Here we go. Eventually, the Romans conquered the Greeks. I think I read this part of this. History calls people Romans because they never stayed in one place for very long.
What?
They were Roman.
The Romans.
Julius Caesar extinguished himself on the battlefields of Gaul, which means he killed himself.
I'm so
They mean distinguished. because they thought he was going to be made king. Tee-hee, Brutus. Nero was a cruel tyranny who would torture his poor subjects by playing the fiddle to them.
That's good.
Yeah.
Rome came to have too many luxuries and baths. At Roman banquets, the guests wore garlics in their hair instead of garlands. They took 2 baths in 2 days, and that's the cause of the fall of Rome.
I mean.
Today, Rome is full of fallen arches, which is what they call it when your feet go flat, fallen arches. During the Renaissance, America began. Christopher Columbus was a great navigator who discovered America while cursing about the Atlantic. His ships were called the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Fe. That's not true.
Santa Maria.
All right, I think I read those. All right. See, maybe I should go to the back. Okay, those aren't funny to read because they're misspellings.
No. My father left me on planet Earth.
Oh, we read these because those were the mangling. Okay, hang on.
Yeah. This kind of alien.
Okay, here are some more signs from abroad. In the office of a Roman doctor, specialist in women and other diseases. Budapest Zoo. Please do not feed the animals. If you have any suitable food, give it to the guard on duty.
Nice.
Okay, I feel like I read a lot of those.
Just read. You can read.
No, but I want
It'll make us laugh.
Okay, those are not as funny. Okay, it's all right. I can't believe we're spending half an hour doing this, but it is funny.
If it did more than historical ones, it'd be alright.
Well, some of them aren't very nice. Okay. All right, I will just read through the history. I don't know that you're going to get a lot of them, though. Okay. I also try to read ahead a little bit because I don't want to read something inappropriate, because sometimes it's not. Okay. Then came the Middle Ages, when everybody was middle-aged.
Wait, what?
Then came the Middle Ages, when everyone was middle-aged. King Alfred conquered the dames. No, but it's not the dames. Dames is women. The dames. The dames. King Arthur lived in the age of chivalry. Chivalry. With brave knights on prancing horses and beautiful women. King Harold mustered his troops before the Battle of Hastings. They mean mustard. Finally, Magna Carta provided that no free man should be hanged twice for the same offense.
What?
Wow. Great.
It was an age of great inventions and discoveries. Gutenberg invented the Bible. Another important invention was the circulation of blood. I don't think that they invented that. Okay, I'm going to stop there. It has been fun. You guys have a good summer. I am sorry about your paper, Christian. that I don't know where it is. Here, I'm going to turn this off before I make confessions like that.
I'm coming back.
Um,